Over the years, shiny Pokemon have been a big hit for Pokemon fans, with raving reviews like, wow, this Pokemon has slightly different colors you can sort of notice, or, oh man, that was so worth it for 8,000 resets, how could you not want one to keep in your PC? But with something as great as shinies, there's always a few problems to balance out how good they truly are, and to keep them in check, to make sure that love is contrasted with a little bit of frustration. So that's why I came up with 20 things that are wrong with shiny Pokemon. You know, out of love. Some are worse. It's no surprise that changing the color of some Pokemon might make them look worse. While it doesn't make them worse as Pokemon, superficially, maybe it's just not someone's cup of tea. There's always been the debate between every pink or lime green shiny being bad and every black shiny being good, but sometimes you also get ones like shiny Graveler. Someone will always like certain ones, and there's always a place in someone's heart for different colors, but in that same idea, there's many shiny Pokemon colors that aren't always the best when compared to the original color scheme we all fell in love with upon first sight. Some are barely changed. While shiny Pokemon colors being worse can start a debate, as Pokemon colors are just a preference, there is an apparent problem where a shiny Pokemon's colors are not apparent, and more just its own problem about how a lot of people can't even tell the changes in a shiny Pokemon's colors. You know when someone apologizes but they barely change their behavior? It's like that. Let's try this out. Which one of these is the shiny Pokemon? Here's 2 Gengars, here's 2 Snorlaxes, here's 2 Urshifu. If you guess these ones, then that's wrong because they were all pictures of their shinies and this is their normal version. Shiny locking. One of the unneeded, unfun additions to shiny Pokemon, and just Pokemon in general, is shiny locking. Usually this is used for legendary Pokemon, or special types of Pokemon, but just the idea of denying the ability to get any shiny Pokemon naturally, so they can be sent out later as an event, or an incentive for pre-ordering, isn't the most enjoyable experience. One of the most fun things to shiny hunt for were legendary Pokemon, and as you can't breed them, it was definitely a lot trickier to get them. When you had a legitimate shiny legendary Pokemon that didn't have an event, you knew this Pokemon took a lot of work and was something you could be proud of. Not even having the chance to just randomly pop up even when you aren't shiny hunting takes a bit of the magic away from the games, when leaving them in doesn't impact the game in a negative way. Yeah, sure, maybe if they didn't shiny lock Eternatus, someone could hack one in and lie to their friends about getting it, but really, that's not actually a real problem, at least not in terms of the game. And they could do that with any shiny Pokemon you can get in the games. Speaking of hacking, some are hacked. Some shiny Pokemon that were traded over to the GTS, or Wonder Trade, or any surprise trades could be hacked. It does oversaturate things, as maybe someone one day wanted to be nice and had 2 shiny Baniris and wanted to give one away to make someone's day. And now you got this, and one of your friends says no, it's hacked. What if someone got a legitimate shiny Pokemon from a really rare event to get a shiny Pokemon, and because of these hackers, everyone goes, nope, just hacked, you're lying? What if someone went back in time to get a limited time exclusive event shiny Pokemon from that period of time? How are we supposed to know that they're a real time traveler if hacked Pokemon are cycling in the trades? Have you thought about that? We could be denying the existence of a time traveler just because you want an easy shiny Gloom. Some are changed. This isn't the same as barely changed, but it has been noted quite a few times that certain Pokemon shiny versions were changed over the generations. This isn't the biggest problem because sometimes that makes the shiny version better, and we shouldn't fear change. Some of us need to change right now. But other than just knowing a shiny Pokemon you like could change at any time, there's also a factor of some of the previous versions of shiny Pokemon being someone's favorite that was then changed. Maybe someone liked purple Charizard before they changed it to black, but now you can't change it back after trading into a newer generation. Maybe someone liked the dung green Arbok over the golden Arbok. Okay, no one does. But the idea I'm presenting still stands for this section. They can pop up in impossible situations. When I say impossible, I don't mean something like shiny locking. I mean they actually pop up, you just can't capture them. The most well-known version of this is the Ralts that Wally can catch. That Ralts can pop up as a shiny, but you aren't able to catch it. You might think all that's cool and all, until it turns out, when you later battle Wally, that Ralts is no longer shiny. There are a lot of scenarios, like the Mencino at the beginning of Pokemon Black and White, and even things like Pokemon in the starting route of earlier generations that you run into before you can even get a Pokeball. We'll be going over all those in a video that'll be up on this channel soon, so stay tuned for that, and subscribe for that. But even just knowing that these Pokemon can pop up as uncatchable shinies can bring a tear to someone's eye. Some are in barely possible situations. Some are just way too hard to catch. While there is an opportunity for you to catch these shiny Pokemon that appear in barely possible situations, things like Explosion, Teleport, and even the Safari Zone can make things rather frustrating. You are able to use abilities like Damp to stop the explosions, or other abilities to make it easier for your Pokemon with similar problems. However, you can't do that in the Safari Zone, and you also can't be prepared for these kinds of Pokemon right away without pre-planning to do so. Things that let the Pokemon get out of the battle, or flee, really give shiny Pokemon an added layer of RNG on an already RNG-focused aspect of the games. It can make it rather tricky and more frustrating than it should be, but luckily, for most of these Pokemon, you can choose to breed them, or you can always just carry a Pokemon with an ability that helps you lock them in, even if you're not hunting them down. Well, that's a little much if you're not actively looking for them. I've never gotten one. Yeah, maybe that's a me problem and not a shiny Pokemon problem, but in a technical understanding of the term wrong with shiny Pokemon, I feel strongly about putting this in as a reason. I have to come clean. I have never gotten a shiny Pokemon. And that's okay, because I don't have to. I am here, standing up for all of us out there who have never caught a shiny Pokemon. I may have never shiny hunted or even tried to get a shiny Pokemon. I don't even let up on the max repels during my playthroughs, and I put no effort into even trying to get a shiny Pokemon. But shouldn't I still get a shiny Pokemon? I am here standing with you, letting you know that I too have not gotten a shiny Pokemon aside from the Lake of Rage Gyarados and one Gengar off the GTS, which was probably hacked. But if you have never been able to encounter a shiny Pokemon, then you understand the oppression and the struggle I face as other Pokemon channels catch a shiny Pokemon and get clipped onto Reddit for screaming at a capacity that could power a large noise complaint gathering. And I am here for all of you saying that I understand. I understand and I get what you're going through. Because I too am shinyless. Square and Star shiny Pokemon. One of the newer additions to shiny Pokemon was the square and star pattern added to the spark of your shiny Pokemon. Now the reason I find this to be a problem is because while it does seem like a nice addition, it doesn't really add much besides this new random element. If it was a way of denoting how a shiny Pokemon was captured, like one was exclusive for breeding, and one was exclusive for a wild encounter, and one was exclusive for an event, I guess, then maybe that would be a nicer addition. It might make a whole black market of shiny Pokemon on eBay with new values for scalpers to create price ranges for, but the RNG of shiny Pokemon having a square or star pattern just seems like a bit of a weird choice for no real reason, especially when you can get either in any encounter. I like shapes though. Given for free. While I don't want to take away the great feeling of someone who's just been given a shiny Pokemon, there does seem to be a bit of devaluing of the rarity of shiny Pokemon. If we look at this video, we can see the question of, are shiny Pokemon losing their value? And while luckily, shiny Pokemon aren't stocks, otherwise I'd have to get the 2 apples and a borrow example out, it does bring up the question, are shiny Pokemon losing their value? Not really. If you just like a Pokemon and you got it for free, that's fine. However, the problem arises from the Pokemon Company using them as incentives to keep people playing the games, or pre-ordering. In South Korea, if you pre-ordered Pokemon Sword and Shield, you get a shiny Necrozma, Lunala, and Solgaleo. I mean, it is an incentive, but it does make them a little less special when they're being used for advertising and to get sales numbers up. Now, I'm no purist, although I did shower this morning, but I feel like being given a shiny Pokemon to incentivize a buy and to just then be downloaded without any special encounter does leave a bit to be desired and undervalues how great some of these Pokemon are, especially when it's used for ones that are shiny locked and unable to be gotten in any other way other than pre-ordering. Event-only shiny Pokemon. This is similar to being given for free, however this is more about the shiny locking aspect, removing any other ability to get these shiny Pokemon from something other than an event. Especially when, if you miss this one event, you might have to wait years upon years to get another chance at catching, or downloading the shiny Pokemon. It was nice to see old shiny Pokemon having quests, rather than just being given, so while it is being given to you, at least you have some atmosphere. It's more of a problem with the time limit on an event exclusive to a shiny Pokemon, and no other way of getting it, that can be a bit of a problem for some fans who just love Pokemon or aren't born yet. Mistaken shiny Pokemon. There are quite a few Pokemon that can let people down when thinking you found a shiny Pokemon. Something like female Hippowdon may trick someone into believing it's shiny. But there is one prominent thing, mostly in the anime, where a Pokemon will be a different color and not their shiny version. The Pokemon Company makes these definite shiny Pokemon colors and set them as each Pokemon's shiny version, but also has a different color for Pokemon that isn't shiny in the anime. Sometimes these are better than their actual shiny, so it is misleading, but a lot of times fans will believe that these are their shiny versions and try to hunt for them, only to find a different shiny Pokemon. I mean, that's not really a problem, you did manage to get one, but the difference between the two change in color Pokemon, from the anime to the games, can be a little bit tricky to deal with when you find out years later that that wasn't a shiny Butterfree. Shiny Ditto. Ditto has its own little problem in its shiny version. When you have a shiny Ditto, it actually doesn't change into the shiny version of the Pokemon it's transforming into. It did in earlier generations, but they took that out, which is really unfortunate. I feel like if you've gone through the trouble of trying to get a shiny Ditto, or even got lucky enough to just encounter it out of nowhere, then it's your right to turn the Pokemon that you're copying into a shiny version. Like, what does Ditto use to transform? Its body, that's made of shiny particles? I know there's some lore somewhere that'll explain it, and regular Ditto does transform into shiny Pokemon when they're in front of it. However, it does feel like this special feature of shiny Ditto being removed is a little rude to take away from the great pile of shiny goo. Shiny Gyarados. Another single shiny Pokemon that takes a bit of a hit is the Shiny Gyarados. I think it's great that they integrated a shiny Pokemon into Generation 2 and gave it its own quest, but now when you get a shiny Magikarp or a shiny Gyarados, well, let's just bring up this video thumbnail again, its value has been decreased. A natural shiny Gyarados now always looks to be the one from the Lake of Rage, and even though you put many hours into hatching Magikarp or fishing at the boondocks to try and get one, a lot of people might think that you just got it from the Lake of Rage when you evolve it into a Gyarados. And the rest will think, why didn't you just get it from the Lake of Rage? At the end of the day, the surplus of shiny Gyarados definitely creates their own wrongness, but it's not really that wrong. It's still just a nice shiny Pokemon to have. Gender evolutions. Some of the Pokemon that pose a bit of a problem in the shiny Pokemon universe are Pokemon that evolve through gender evolutions. Certain Pokemon like Combee and Lil Lizard can only evolve as females and remain stuck in their single dimension of evolution if they are male. This means if you get a shiny version of either of those, you typically aren't able to evolve them into the wonderful, fully evolved shinies they could be. Luckily there is a glitch in Sword and Shield that allows you to evolve either version, so if you had a shiny, then you're in luck. But it still remained a long-standing problem with shiny Pokemon and gender evolutions. Branched evolutions. Another evolution method that created some wrongfulness with shiny Pokemon was branched evolutions. Now, if you love both Pokemon equally, or more accurately, loved one more than the other, then this is no problem. You could simply just pick Gallade or Gardevoir, and you only have to reject one. But now you have a shiny Eevee, which one do you throw the dart at? Forms. There are quite a few Pokemon with different forms that have different shiny versions. You might want a specific type of form. For example, let's use okay, well, no one needs to ever choose one of those. For example, let's use Gastrodon. It has two forms depending on the sea, and maybe you just want a specific one with a shiny edition, but you run into the other one, and you go, oh man, I thought you said the one I wanted was in the west, not in the east. And now you have a problem both with having the wrong shiny Pokemon form and direction. There are even far worse ones than just choices between the seas. Alcremie has multiple colors that you're stuck with in its hair. Sinistea, there's an authentic version, a counterfeit version, and don't get me started with Spinda, because that's a non-factor if you're trying to get every shiny Spinda spot pattern. That no longer makes this a hobby, that's an obsession. Overworld shiny Pokemon. One thing specific to Pokemon Let's Go is that you can actually see the shiny Pokemon in the overworld. There have, however, been times where a shiny Pokemon has appeared, but you can't actually reach the location without going through another door, and thus losing the ability to even encounter it. This may seem similar to something running away from you, which they can in fact do in Let's Go as well, so add that to the game, even if you use a Master Ball. But just seeing it in the overworld without even getting the chance to encounter it, or seeing it just pop away when you're right about to get to it, that feels even worse than it just fleeing from you. Can't tell the difference. Some shiny Pokemon are a little too similar to their original colors, and while that's okay for some, it does bring up the problem of encountering a shiny Pokemon and not realizing it's shiny. Now, you might think, oh, that's never happened to me. But has it? Maybe there was a time you ran from a shiny Pokemon thinking it was a regular version of the Pokemon, but you just missed the shiny animation by looking away. Maybe that happened. Who knows? I'm just gonna leave that on the table for a bit to settle though. Nah, couldn't have been us. And finally, there's too many. According to this article, there's just too many shiny Pokemon now. With the ease of getting a shiny Pokemon increasing, and with the amount that are being pumped out into the universe, clearly we just have too many shiny Pokemon. We need to stop having fun. We need to stop making shiny Pokemon because Screedran has found this problem to be persistent that an article needed to be written. Really, it's just an article about encountering multiple shiny Pokemon in one den, and you actually can only choose one Pokemon to take with you at the end of each adventure, meaning you have to cut one from your team, but you gotta do what you gotta do. That is a problem though, but sometimes when you're given too many opportunities in life, you need to take a look at your options and think, which one do I cut? The red wire or the blue wire? And at the end of the day, it'll always be a decision that's blown out of proportion.